The cracks in the marble facade, a tragedy in Dubai. The sharp scream of the Dubai Fire Department's emergency vehicles broke the early morning quiet in Jamro's Hind Al-Safa neighborhood at 3:47 a.m. on April 16, 2013. Red and blue crisis beams glinted on the immaculate stone fronts of multi-million-dollar homes as fire engines gathered at a large house whose top story was engulfed in fierce, bright fire. Within the smoke-choked mansion, emergency crews found 2 corpses in the burned-out wreckage of what was previously opulent rooms, while a third person, badly injured by fire but still living, was located downstairs, her expensive sleepwear burned and shaking hands revealing the terror she had experienced. By sunrise, news headlines would shout around global news outlets, telling a story of a romantic 3-person conflict turned deadly. What began as doubts concerning pregnancy-related nausea would conclude with a lethal fire that revealed the hidden, unpleasant reality beneath Dubai's ideal life for foreigners. Hind Almazrui, the central figure in this drama, had entered a life of advantage in 1971 as the child of a leading Dubai business dynasty. Her youth involved personal educators, trips abroad, and the implicit assumption she would make a good marriage and uphold the family's excellent standing. Excelling in both her studies and interpersonal life at university, she could manage both customary sitting-room meetings and contemporary corporate meetings with the same poise. Her wedding to Nasser Almazrui in 1993 was the premier party of that period, uniting 2 of Dubai's most powerful families. 2 decades afterwards, Hind had constructed what seemed to be the ideal existence for a foreign wife. She arranged fundraising balls generating large sums of money and meticulously curated photograph collections displaying luxury brand shopping excursions and short weekend vacations. Their Al-Safa mansion, bought during Dubai's economic upswing, contained 6 bedrooms, a tennis court, and a vanishing-edge swimming pool with a view of Dubai's quickly changing cityscape. However, under the shiny exterior, faults had started to show. Following 20 years of matrimony, the pair continued without children in spite of many attempts at conception help. The repeated monthly letdowns had negatively affected Hind's detail-oriented personality. And acquaintances observed she had grown more domineering regarding home administration and upholding their status in Dubai's close-connected high-society groups. Her husband, Nasser Almazrui, presented a striking presence in Dubai's corporate world. As the proprietor of a successful construction firm, he had obtained profitable state agreements for significant public works. His total financial value was more than 40 million dirhams, diversified among property assets and commercial enterprises. To his professional contacts, Nasser seemed to be experiencing the ideal life: a prosperous firm, an attractive spouse, and an opulent way of living. Nevertheless, the people most intimate with the pair had started to observe slight alterations. Nasser's work journeys had grown more common and extended, and his previously considerate behavior towards Hind had become remote. When questioned, he would mention growing commercial prospects and the pressures of Dubai's flourishing building sector. Into this exclusive environment entered Clarice Santos, a 24-year-old who had completed her nursing degree from the Philippines. Similar to many of her fellow citizens, she had arrived in Dubai via an employment office, attracted by the guarantee of making more money in 2 years than she could earn in 10 years in her native country. Her tiny chamber on the mansion's top story became her complete universe, an area hardly bigger than a hotel room. In spite of her nursing training, she had taken household employment as the quickest route to her final objective, accumulating sufficient funds to go back to the Philippines and start a minor medical practice. The loneliness was possibly the most difficult aspect. Dubai's sponsorship framework meant Clarice could not switch jobs without authorization, could not journey without restrictions, and had minimal legal safeguards. Her interpersonal interactions were limited to infrequent video calls with relatives and short talks with other household employees. This complicated network operated inside Dubai's elaborate social structure, where home helpers created an unseen support system upholding foreign residents' lavish ways of living. In areas such as Al Safa, household staff acted as markers of prestige indicating their boss's riches. However, this arrangement generated weaknesses, separating laborers who relied on bosses for their official standing, frequently having no options when limits were violated. As 2013 started, the Almazrui homes seemed to keep ideal organization. Nearby residents observed recognizable routines of prosperous foreign resident existence: high-end automobiles leaving every morning, frequent hosting of guests, and the silent competence of properly supervised household employees. The stone front of their villa shone in Dubai's constant sunlight, mirroring wealth and firmness. However, privately, slight transformations were starting to surface. Alterations that would eventually result in a lethal clash, revealing not only individual treacheries, but also fundamental weaknesses in Dubai's complicated societal structure. The flawless existence Hind had dedicated 20 years constructing was on the verge of falling apart in the most dramatic and sorrowful manner possible. The catalyst was Dubai's short springtime. It was at this period that Hind Almazrui initially detected the slight modifications in her home's meticulously arranged routine. The indicators were so minor at first that she doubted her own perceptions. A brief instant of sickness when Clarice provided the morning meal, the manner in which the young Filipino woman abruptly shunned the potent smell of Arabic coffee. Initially, Hind assigned these alterations to the time of year change or possibly longing for home impacting their household employee. But as time went by, the signals became not possible to disregard. Clarice, who had consistently kept her slim shape, started selecting baggier customary Filipino garments. Her vitality now appeared to vary enormously, with sudden spurts of movement succeeded by times where she would sit wearily, her hand instinctively lying on her abdomen. More worrisome was Nasser's rising defensive conduct towards their household employee. The person who had scarcely recognized Clarice's existence beyond fundamental orders now asked about her well-being and even demanded on transporting her to doctor's visits personally. When Hind challenged this odd attentiveness, Nasser's replies contained a protective sharpness that was completely uncharacteristic. Family meals became practices in uncomfortable quiet, with Nasser sneaking looks towards the kitchen where Clarice labored. Their companions at weekly meetings started remarking on the strain with typical tactful ambiguity. The inquiry started by chance when Hind observed unaccounted for digits on their joint cell phone invoice. Her finance history made her inherently logical about monetary inconsistencies, and she started methodically inspecting their home financial records with scientific exactness. The pivotal discovery was concealed in Clarice's tiny top-story chamber, under neatly creased customary Filipino clothing, a pregnancy examination kit still in its box. The finding struck her like a bodily hit, verifying doubts she had urgently wished were incorrect. Her hands trembled as she photographed the proof, her thoughts speeding through consequences and potential outcomes. Her systematic investigation revealed more clues: Nasser's growing more irregular work timetable, uneasy conduct from other staff members, and monetary abnormalities like money removals in quantities uncharacteristic for his normal expenditure habits. The societal stresses burdening Hind strengthened as her doubts hardened. Her family's importance in Dubai's corporate world signified any disgrace would echo much further than their private existences. A matrimonial emergency including household employees would not just ruin her individual joy, but possibly harm professional associations and family respect in manners that might impact numerous generations. As April advanced, Hind started organizing a confrontation with extreme caution. She selected a moment when other home employees would be away, guaranteeing seclusion for what she understood would be an existence-changing discussion. However, she also comprehended the deep authority inequalities that rendered the circumstance so intricate. recognizing that Clarice's defenselessness established lawful and communal forces that extended well beyond mere individual treachery. But what Hind Almazrui did next would turn Dubai's most polished neighborhood into a scene from a nightmare. The fire hadn't started yet, but her rage was already burning. Part 2, The Fall of the Marble House, coming next. If this story held you, if you felt every breath of tension and betrayal, then take a moment now, subscribe, hit like, and turn on the bell. Because in Echoes of Crime, every episode peels back another layer of truth, and you won't want to miss what comes next.